Hello, my dear gardeners. We are in this beautiful, mature garden of Nancy Grant, and Nancy lives in Fairfield, Connecticut. You're here for a real treat because you cannot really buy the old garden. And here's this garden. How old is it, Nancy?
Well, it's probably almost 40 years old.
40 years old, yes.
40 to 50. This was our first garden. It was a vegetable garden.
All this was a vegetable garden?
Well, mostly it was vegetables. And then our children grew up and we said, we don't need all 24 tomato plants. And I became a floral designer. And so I said, I'm going to grow flowers. So we put the tomato area into peonies and it went from there. And our daughter got married here, which was quite nice. Then about 2 years later, we said, well, we miss those tomato plants.
Let them get back into our garden.
So we sort of put another garden, and then another one, and another one, and another one.
Nancy, tell us a little bit about your gorgeous home.
Well, this home is a reproduction of a 1730 Connecticut Georgian, 1800 farmhouse here, and unfortunately it burned to the ground in 1972. And all we had left was the stone foundation. So we decided to put it on the old foundation and take it back to an earlier period. So it is about a 18th century
It doesn't look
Georgian colonial.
Yeah. It doesn't look 50 years old. It looks 300 years old.
Well, the town of Fairfield was doing a survey and they said, how did we miss this house? They came to our door and we said, well, you didn't miss it. It's not that old, but because it was of such exceptional reproduction, they decided to put it in the survey. So we have a plaque on the front door. But we had a fellow here in Southport that was an architectural historian, and when it burned to the ground, he said he would help us rebuild it. So we have him to thank for the detail because it's
a beautiful home.
Quite authentic. We have old window panes in the windows. I hand-washed 800 panes, sent them to Burt's Lumber Company.
Keeps you fit.
And so a lot of people think it looks old. And the doorway is from a home in Stratford, Connecticut.
Oh, okay.
That we bought from an old building material guy up in Roxbury. And it was supposed to go to Texas, but he wanted it to stay in Connecticut, and so we bought it.
And here you have a beautiful home.
So when we started with the home, then we thought we need an 18th century garden that would complement the home. And we contracted a man named Rudy Favretti, who was a professor up at UConn. And I cold called him and said, would you help us? I don't want you to do the work, I just need a master plan. And
okay.
He gave us a master plan of what would be the appropriate plant material around the house and this garden. It's a New England colonial garden.
So what is New England colonial garden? What is it? Like, what are the features?
Well, it always had a fence around it. This was a fence that my father had up in Essex, Connecticut, and he didn't want it anymore, so we took it. It wasn't exactly the one that Rudy Favretti wanted, but it's been serviced. I mean, it's serviced us for 50 years.
Right.
And they would have had quadrants and neatness. We didn't have, I don't have all 18th century plant material in it. We did take some liberties because there are modern varieties, but I do have a lot of old roses. I do a lot of David Austin roses.
Show us
sort
those.
Of hardy here.
Yes.
Hybrid teas don't work for me at all. Hybrid teas don't grow in my climate here at all.
Yep.
This, I think, is Lady Emma Hamilton.
All right. Lady Emma Hamilton. Let me smell her. Light scent, right? Or maybe this is an old bloom.
If you look around, I have larkspur that is self-seeded all over my garden. This is Canid van Denmark, which is an old fragrant rose.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh, the scent.
That nice?
Say it again, what's the name?
It's Canid van Denmark.
Oh, it's gorgeous scent.
And I think some of mine have gone beneath the graft. They go with what they bred them with.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sometimes that happens in this climate.
It looks like Dr. Huey graft took over.
So next year I'm going to replace some of them. I have some unusual things. I have a bush clematis, which is still, it's over here.
Is that Lady of Shalott?
I'm not sure what that one is.
It does look like it.
Might be.
It does look like it.
You have to support it, but I don't.
Bush
I
clematis.
rarely see it, and I have a couple of them because I've divided them. And then all this boxwood that is here came from 2 mother boxwood from the front of the side of the house that used to set seedlings. Well, when we started the perennial bed, the vegetable bed, which you will see, we didn't have a deer fence.
Oh,
I went out
okay.
one day and I said to my husband, we have nothing left.
How old is these boxwoods, would you say?
Well, let's see, I got those very early. They're probably 40 years old.
40 years.
And we have a fence or a gate fence around it, but you can hardly see the fence now because the box would have gotten so big.
I love the maturity of it all.
Well, they're old, and we've got the big hemlock hedge back there.
What do you do with that hemlock hedge? Do you trim it?
We do, and it needs to be trimmed again. The last time we trimmed it, I think, was a couple of years ago.
So
and they get big.
They do.
So you've really got to control them.
But they have a nice background for your garden.
But originally, this was all asparagus here.
Oh, really?
It's a little out of control, but you can't get rid of asparagus once you put it in the ground. It's there because it goes like 5 feet deep.
Yeah.
So
do you harvest it?
I do. It's pretty well gone now. Well, here's one
little guy.
Some are still coming.
What can you say about New Dawn from growing it for so many years?
Well, it's a later blooming, so it sort of comes at the end of the rose season, and it's very proliferous, so it's a very lush year.
Very lush year. So you have this garden has a very strong structure, right?
Well, it does. I'm thinking of getting rid of this boxwood because I want to have a view, a vista. Luton's bench.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get my guy to take it out. I would do with some urn with some kind of a plant material flowering. Keep it lower. This got very big and he pruned it. It's just got huge.
It is. It wants to grow.
It really sort of blocks this view. That's a weeping willow. That's a willow plant.
Where do you have it? I don't see it.
It's on the left of the bench, and I had 2 of them. One of them died.
Okay.
So I may have to take that out.
Do you sit on that bench often?
No, I don't sit on
You're
the
the gardener, right?
I don't have time to sit.
Your guests sit on that bench, right? And they enjoy your garden.
Come in, you could see that.
Nancy, I know that you share your produce, your flowers and your vegetables with the community here in Fairfield, right?
Well, I do. I have a farm stand on Friday and Saturday.
Tell us where you sell for people to know.
Well, I sell to Double L Market. I sell to Pachi's Restaurant.
You're busy.
I sell to private customers, and I sell occasionally to the pantry.
All right.
And that's it.
If I would want to come to your stand, where will I find you in Fairfield?
Well, I'm at 4014 Reading Road in Fairfield, Connecticut.
And you open it up on Saturdays and Sundays?
From 10 to 4. Friday and Saturday.
Oh, I'm sorry. Friday and Saturday, from 10 to 4.
So when we finished with this garden, we had no vegetables because the kids had grown, and we said we don't need all these vegetables. And about 3 years later, we said, well, we miss the vegetables. So we said, well, let's put a little vegetable garden here. So we started with the first one, which I'll show you.
It looks beautiful. I like the peas.
So we started with this first bed, and then we said, well, maybe we'll do another bed.
And off it goes.
And
Down the hill.
And the English sweet peas. So they're just about ready to bloom. We've just started picking them. You can see the pods forming.
What is your favorite sweet pea variety?
The green arrow I adore.
Green arrow.
These are green arrow. They're long, they're full, they're sweet. They're just
okay.
A wonderful sweet pea.
How about tomatoes? Your favorite ones?
Well, we have heirlooms and I have regulars. My favorite tomato is maybe, I don't know, do I have a favorite? I love them all. I really am in love with the heirloom tomatoes, so I grow a lot of those. I grow persimmon. I grow a tomato called pineapple that's wonderful. There's another one that's green. There's a green zebra, which is a small one. I grow little tiny, the small tomatoes, and I put them in little half-inch pints, and they fly out of here. They're called artisan, so you get a mixture of yellows and pinks and reds and greens. People seem to like those. I think the heirloom are terrific, but I do hedge my bets, and I have Big Boy and Beefsteak. And
why do you like heirloom tomatoes?
I think the taste is superior to the modern tomato. They're juicier. They're more interesting because they come in all sorts of colors: yellow, gold, orange.
Are there disadvantages to heirloom tomatoes?
Well, they're not as disease resistant, but to me it's worth it to grow them. They do get more disease, and they probably aren't as prolific as a modern tomato.
Right. How do you fight the disease?
Well, I have a lot of basil that's planted in between. I just try to keep them clean.
Right, I see you have a lot of straw.
I do straw because the leaves don't like to be touching the ground. That's where the disease comes from, so I try to keep them clean. These are peppers. I'm doing the same with that. I love the straw as a mulch. When you use that the next year, the soil is like butter. It's easy to dig in. And of course, in Connecticut, we have stones. We always say we grow stones.
Plenty of those, right?
So it just makes it a lot easier to dig them. And it enriches the soil. And this needs a little weeding here, but I have celery and kohlrabi. I don't know if a lot of people don't know kohlrabi, but it's a wonderful crunch for salads. It's almost like an apple, but it's not sweet. And if you can see the purple, it grows above the ground.
Very colorful.
I have it in white and also the purple. Everything this year is early. This is fennel. And then I grow a lettuce called Salanova, which a lot of people don't grow. It's a pelleted seed that has to be started inside and then planted out. A lot of farmers don't want to do that extra step. To me, it's worth it because it's a fabulous lettuce. It will stop when it really gets hot because it doesn't do too well in the summer. And then I can start it up again in the fall. This is more of it. I'm needing a little weeding. And then I'm doing a lot more with flowers this year. So I've got, these are more sweet peas. Those are the edible. And over there I have the flowering sweet peas. And then these were all peonies on the stone, near the stone wall. That's Swiss chard there. I have onions. There's always weeding, unfortunately, in a garden.
Well, weeds are our friends, in a way, with a difficult relationship, right?
Only the woodchuck would eat the weeds and not the plants. Well, in between, this is more tomatoes, and I use cattle fencing, which I like, because I can weave my tomatoes in and out of it. And then early on, I put lettuce in between. I will use a tarp. And I've gotten to use more of this Sunbelt landscape cloth because it keeps the weeds at bay.
This is the one?
This is
you mean?
It
Okay.
comes in 3 foot, it comes in 4 feet, and it comes in 6 feet. But if you don't want to be a slave to weeding,
Mm-hmm.
it does help, and it lasts about 10 years, they say.
Okay. Do you
So
store it for winter?
this year I left it down, but I think it biodegrades faster if you leave it out in the winter, so
Of
I may
course.
roll it up. But
Right.
I will, when this lettuce goes, I'll roll it back down because it just, and these are sort of mini heads. I don't know if you can see, that's a really pretty one, sort of
Those little
variegated.
guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've cut an awful lot, but I grow the little gem, which is like a mini head, and this is called Newham. But the tomatoes, I think I have some tomatoes on them already.
And what are those? Those are
Those
blackberries.
Oh, those are blackberries. Yes, that's.
Do you have a good crop of blackberries?
I do.
They're on the sun. They love it here.
And this is rhubarb down below there. That's
Mm-hmm. I introduced rhubarb in my garden.
Don't you love it?
I love it.
I do too.
Nothing eats it, first of all.
No,
You can eventually you can harvest it on a regular basis,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
How do you keep rhubarb from flowering, from bolting?
I cut it.
You
I
cut
cut
it mercilessly. Yes.
Right. As soon as I see that flower, I cut it.
Yeah.
So
I had to travel this year, and my rhubarb went into
it
seeds
goes quickly.
very quickly. Yeah.
But I have it here. I have it up there. I have it down here.
Okay. Oh, look at the strawberries!
These are my alpine strawberries that were in the
How cute!
raised bed that jumped out.
They escaped.
So I just left them there, and I'm thinking of using them in with my asparagus as a ground cover because I get a
Sounds
weed
good.
there, and I think this might keep the weed at bay.
Mm-hmm.
They're a different taste than a strawberry, but they're sweet.
They're
nice.
Sweet, yes,
Yeah,
and they kind of create fruits for a long time.
They do, and nobody seems to eat them.
No birds eating them?
Animals. No, and I haven't had too many people eat them.
And what do we have here?
As if we didn't have enough gardens, and we thought, well,
This looks so good here.
yes,
Lamb's ears.
ear.
Yeah.
That maybe we would develop this. This was all treed, so we cleared it. It had cedar trees, and we've used the cedar trees as posts for support.
Mm-hmm.
So these are raspberries. Those are 3. They're about
My.
coming. So we have 3 rows of raspberry. This was all peonies, and my peonies go all the way down the hillside.
What is your favorite raspberry variety?
Well, I think that golden one is delicious. Do you know the golden one?
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit more delicate, harder to grow, but it's very sweet. Cut them back in the fall. Sometimes I don't get to it until February, but I do cut them back, and then I support them with wires so that it's easy. They don't fall on the ground,
Right.
and it's easier to pick.
Right.
So
Do you fertilize them?
I do.
What do you do for them?
Well, I use a fertilizer on my garden. I always lime it because we have very acidic soil in Connecticut, and I've been using a fertilizer called Sustain, which is organic and slow release, doesn't burn. And I've had good luck. Sustain. I've had good luck with that. I also do leaf mulch and rototill it into the gardens, which helps.
So in spring, you do the major fertilization of your garden.
I always lime too because Connecticut soil is very acidic.
Yeah.
And it just helps to neutralize it.
Well,
I'm not much on testing.
Right.
It just seems to work, so I use it.
You do what works. But your blueberries, right there down the hill, I see they are already protected well from birds.
Well, blueberries will be eaten by the birds. You won't get a one unless you protect them.
So you sell blueberries too at your stand?
And I have currants that are just coming in.
Oh, they're nice
They're
and
very nutritious.
soft.
Yes, they're really very good for you. So these were a gift from a friend.
And you just propagated them?
No, she just gave them to me, and I just put them all in here. And
okay. Do you talk to your plants?
Sometimes.
Do they talk
When they
back?
don't grow. No, that's a nice thing. They don't talk back. The blueberries are major pruning.
Oh, they are?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Let's go and see. Show us your blueberries.
They're loaded this year. Yeah.
So you don't acidify the soil for them?
I do.
You do?
Use Hollytone because they like acidic soil.
Yes.
Ranges
So
to-
Connecticut soil is not enough for them?
No, I reinforce it.
Yeah. And they love it. It looks like they love it.
And I do it with my hydrangeas. Of course, I had some guys a couple years ago put lime on the hydrangeas and they were pink.
Oh.
Oh, they're about...
They're old, right?
They're old, yeah. Maybe 5 or 6 years, maybe 10. They're really loaded. Look at them. But if you don't... We finally put a top netting on because we tried this and they tried putting it on the top, but they secured it. So hopefully I used to net them, and I do net sometimes the raspberries and the blackberries.
Right.
Because I get the raspberries first, then I get the blueberries, then I get the blackberries.
Do you sell those blueberries at your stand?
I sell the blueberries and the raspberries.
When are they going to be for sale at your stand?
Well, the blueberries usually are about the 4th of July, but they might be early this year. It's a very early year. I mean, everything seems to be 2 weeks early. And we've had those nice hot weather days early on, which brings everything right out. Like the peonies were 2 weeks at least early. I had peonies in May. I hardly ever have them in May. It's all washed, ready to go.
So which room do you have here, Nancy?
This is where I wash all the lettuce and all the vegetables before they go out. My customers. But this is an order that's going out today.
Look at them, they're so lush.
This is escarole.
How do you keep them fresh?
How do I what?
Keep them fresh.
Well, it's cool here, and I just did it this morning. So he's picking it up. The customer's picking it up shortly. This is the Salanova lettuce. So this Salanova lettuce comes in about 7 varieties. This is butterhead. It comes in red and green. That's a butterhead.
Look at this, the colors.
So they mix them together. But it's a fabulous lettuce. I've sold it for years and everybody loves it. And then this over here, I'm making chive vinegar.
Chives, all right.
So you put chive blossoms in and then you strain it.
So you just use then, it's a vinegar.
The vinegar.
It's a nice rosy color.
I haven't tasted it yet. We just started doing it. So we'll see. This is the workroom.
Beautiful.
And I love my sink.
Yes, it's a good working sink. Yes.
But gets a little messy, but
it's okay.
And dirty.
Garden is all things,
right?
Including beautiful and messy and weeds and roses,
but it's fun. And
it's
a lot
fun.
of people just get addicted to it, which I am.
Yes, it's a good addiction. It's a good hobby.
And a gardener always wants another garden, right?
Oh yeah, I want another garden. Go ahead.
You gotta think, you gotta take care of all these gardens.
Well, it was a wonderful tour. Thank you, Nancy, for sharing with us. It was beautiful, and the weather was so nice just for this.
It's a perfect day.
Yeah, a perfect day in the garden of Nancy Grant of Fairfield. Happy gardening.